Good Monday morning, barely, to you. This is being recorded just before noon, so technically it's AM still. We're just going to get right into it. We're going to just look at the GFS and the Euro models and discuss some of the flies in the ointment with the forecast, especially across North Carolina. I know people are pretty interested in the forecast, more so than current conditions, but we will mention current conditions because you can't mention the forecast without mentioning current conditions. So right now we have a pretty impressively strong high pressure that's going to be diving south across the central part of the United States, and this is going to kick off a low level or a surface low pressure center across the northern Gulf, or just around the Gulf Coast over the next 36 to 48 hours. And this is going to bring some pretty interesting weather across the Carolinas. So here is early Wednesday morning. This is about 4 a.m. We got some precipitation breaking out across the Ohio and mid-Mississippi River valleys, and some pretty hefty precipitation across the Gulf Coast where that low pressure center is. And this track of the low pressure center is very, very important. Right now, it's like a little too far south for some really heavy precipitation across western parts of North Carolina. Usually you want this low around somewhere around the Big Bend area of Florida, to where you can have some pretty what we call upglide or isentropic lift that'll usually sets up across the western part of North Carolina. We just don't have that right now, at least in this past few model runs. Even the Euro has calmed down, which I will show you, but the dynamics are just lacking across western parts of North and South Carolina. The dynamics really come in across the northeastern part of the state, where you can see some heavier precipitation break out across places like Elizabeth City over towards Raleigh, Durham. This is getting into Wednesday afternoon, about between 1 and 4 p.m. Places like Kill Devil Hills, Nags Head, Elizabeth City, places north of Raleigh, and probably including Raleigh. We'll see some heavier precipitation, and the type here should be snow, and we'll see this in a moment. But here is the dynamics. We're going to look at the 850 millibar wind from the GFS, and this really paints a pretty stark image of just the lack of dynamics that we have across the western part of North Carolina. So Charlotte, Asheville, maybe as far east as Fayetteville. We're really going to dodge a bullet here unless you wanted snow. If you wanted snow, I got some bad news then. The winds just above the surface of the earth, about 1,500 meters up, is just not strong enough to make the atmosphere realize the moisture. So what that means is we don't really have enough isentropic lift or synoptic scale lift to really wring out some snowfall. Now, that's not saying we're not going to see any snowfall. The probability is high enough to where we would see some snow. It's just because of the dynamics and the lack of the dynamics, because the wind speeds at 1,500 meters up is just, it's just weak. We're not going to see all that much accumulation across the western half of North Carolina. As you can see, the wind speeds start to increase, and this is coincided with that precipitation breaking out, because we have isentropic lift being maximized across the northeastern part of the state here. And that's what you really need for this type of event. Not only is the GFS depicting this, but also the ECMWF is also painting a very similar evolution to the dynamics involved. So notice that across the western parts of the United States, the western part of North Carolina, upstate of South Carolina, the wind speeds aren't all that strong. It doesn't get strong until Wednesday afternoon, just after lunchtime, and it's mainly confined to the eastern part of the state. And no surprise that this is where the heaviest snowfall would occur. So here's the ECMWF, the Euro model, and there's that heavy snowfall up towards 8 to maybe even 12 inches of snow. Places like Elizabeth City is looking at more of a snowfall than Charlotte, North Carolina, or even parts of the mountains. Notice that most of the mountain snowfall comes after the event has pretty much ended, and this is a northwest flow snow, so that's about 2 inches along the ridge tops. But lucky to get an inch around Morganton, Hickory, maybe up to 2 inches, but not as much as the eastern part of the state. And the GFS, wrong one, paints a very similar scenario. So unfortunately, if you live in the western part of the state, the dynamics just aren't there for very heavy precipitation. What we call the dendritic growth zone. It's where you get those big fat flakes. The lift just isn't there. The synoptic scale lift just isn't there, and you can really see that on the 850 millibar wind speeds. It's just they're too weak. So that's what we're looking at right now. You might get up to 2 to 3 inches across the Charlotte metro area, probably higher amounts, ironically, east of 77, maybe 1 to 2 inches around that I-85 corridor in the upstate, and into places like Gastonia. Between I-85 and I-40, maybe up to 2 inches is possible, but that's about it. And that is taking the higher end of the guidance. Most places will probably barely see an inch, if anything. So while snow will be pretty hard to come by across the western part of North Carolina and the upstate of South Carolina, the eastern part will not only have to deal with snow, which we'll get to in a moment, but we have to also deal with ice. We're approaching damaging accumulations across the Greenville area and points north of Jacksonville, between Raleigh, Fayetteville, over towards Jacksonville and Greenville. You guys have the possibility of seeing some ice accumulations that are approaching damaging ice accumulations. So about a quarter of an inch. That's really a lot to deal with for trees and power lines. So while there will be some snow mixed in, the ice will be more dangerous from I-95 pretty much eastward towards Greenville, North Carolina. So while the high side of guidance suggests around an inch in Charlotte, up to 2 to 3 inches in Hickory and across the mountains, what we would expect is lucky to get up to a half inch or so across the Charlotte and I-85 corridor, between a half inch to an inch between I-85 and I-40 across the western part of North Carolina, and up to 3 inches across the higher peaks in the mountains. To the east of 77 is a different story because of the dynamics that are going to come together across the eastern part of the eastern part of the state, expecting up to 6 inches across the border between North Carolina and Virginia, 3 inches in Greensboro, up towards Raleigh, Durham, 2 inches in Rocky Mount, and about an inch in Greenville, North Carolina. So that's what we have right now. If anything changes, I will be sure to provide a YouTube short video on what all has changed, if any changes occur. I will be sure to let you know. You guys be safe out there, and I will see you in the next one.